Yeah, we don't. He could have a little bit of sidewall damage there to the car that could be affecting his aerodynamics just a little bit. But here comes Doug thinking about a move to the outside, going down into the chicane. He's going to have to be very brave to do it, and pulls it off. Oh, yoy, you can't get a whole lot closer than that. My goodness gracious.
Let's take a look at this from the hood, because this is where Partridge needs to change his pants, and Kinchler probably does too after he saw what happened in his mirrors. But Partridge comes in too hot, clips that inside curve, gets unsettled, then he's on the brakes. We're going to go in slow-mo here to see how close it was, and it was very close.
Yeah, the top three have been an incredible fight. Oh man.
Gently does it, boys, as they make their way down. They bang wheels. Oh, Sebastian Tixier, he goes tumbling over. Trengarade going off the circuit. Goodness gracious. Looked like Jim Shedlick went off the track in sympathy there.
This is the view that he has going through. He sees a couple lights in the distance, trying to get it rejoined.
Oh, that's not good. Careful, boys, careful. Too wide coming up, Eau Rouge. And the loser there is going to be Vaughn, as Karthik Pai keeps his foot in it. Vaughn going to lose another position there to Mika Lino, and Lino going to go for a 2-for-1 as they come down the Kamel straight. He has got such massive overspeed. Look at that move from the number 5 machine.
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing.
It was a strange dichotomy between the two classes last season. Sintez Galindo ran away with the GTP crown by more than 2 full wins worth of points over his nearest rival. Yet in the GTOs, it came down to a single point between Phil Lake and Yuko Leskala. The nail-biter wasn't decided until the last lap of the last race. It's going to be tough to top that, but Le Mans often provides excitement. So let's see if it does today as we get ready to watch round 1 of the Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Circuit de la Sarthe is already a fast one, but take away the chicanes on the Mulsanne and you've got an eye-watering amount of speed. Let's head to our track eye to learn more. Welcome to Le Mans. When you talk about legendary circuits, this is a place that stands among the most famous in the world. Part permanent road course, part temporary street circuit, it traipses through the countryside just south of the city where it gets its namesake. Its size matches its reputation as well, clocking it at 8.5 miles, which equates to roughly 13.5 kilometers. However, when you take into account that it's split by only 33 turns, the frighteningly fast nature of this circuit becomes clear. Most of the corners have been added over the century of history it's experienced, but many have become renowned and respected. The 2 turns at the opposite ends of the massively long Mulsanne Straight play equally important roles. Tertre Rouge requires a great exit in order to not lose massive amounts of time, while Mulsanne Corner takes bravery and precision in order to brake as late as possible and keep opponents from passing you on the way in. There's also hair-raising moments like the tricky entry to Indianapolis, or the close walls along the bridge section in the Porsche curves. To win here, drivers will need a very low downforce setup, a good sense of strategy, and heaps of bravery. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is the crown jewel of endurance racing, which many drivers dream of someday winning and many fans flock to witness in person. Once you've driven the track here on iRacing, it's easy to see why. Well, Adam, we had the Lotus 49s here a little earlier. This is slightly more modern machinery, so what can we expect in this version of this race today?
Well, the Talladega of the Camel Series, the historic layout of the Circuit de la Sarthe in Pays de la Loire, France, is the second longest street course in the rotation for the Camel Series, and by far the most contentious. Featuring an uninterrupted Mulsanne straight, this track will feel most at home to, well, nobody and everybody. A 3.7 mile long straightaway causes problems for both classes, but let's start with the Audis. Gearing will be their biggest challenge, as the difference between going in the draft and not being in the draft can be upwards of 15 miles per hour of difference, which will make this a pure draft race for the GTO class. The GTPs, on the other hand, only get 10 mile per hours of benefit in the draft, but they have another challenge: wing angle. If you put any in, you're severely hampered in a straight line, so much so that you may not be able to pass, but running no wing here makes Indianapolis and the Porsche curves nearly impossible at speed, making it a dangerous trade-off for the class. Multi-class here, on the other hand, shouldn't be too much of an issue around almost all of the circuit, except the final two sectors, especially braking for Indianapolis and the sweeping right-hander into karting. These two corners and the 20 to 30 mile per hour closing speeds of the classes make this a disaster for the GTPs if they get stuck behind, or a nightmare for the GTOs if they get their apex taken away and have to take to the grass to avoid contact. It's hard to know what to expect in a new series of Camel Joe, and I have a feeling we'll have more questions than answers at the end of this one.
Yeah, this definitely isn't one that's representative of the typical schedule here, so we'll see whether or not we have an idea of the pecking order after today, or if we'll just be scratching our heads. But we have an idea of how things wound up in the pecking order last season. If we look at the prototypes, as I mentioned, Sintez Galindo, look at that, 62 points. It's 25 for a win in this series, so that should give you an idea of how far away he stretched from everybody else. Krajcik was able to solidify second over Laust Olsen. Those two were in a fight pretty much all season. Mosquera only 5 points back from Laust, and then Timothy Vaughn, another little jump behind to round out the top five. Machajewski was very fast, but didn't show up for much of the season and basically gave up his opportunities to vie for the championship, which he briefly had. And there you can see the rest of them down all the way to 10th. Now, what about the GTO championship? Because boy, was that one a fun one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. A very fun race for sure, with Phil Lake and Yuka Leskola coming down to the wire. Only winning it by 1 point is Phil Lake. Then Nick Bacano's 38 points back. Javier Del Olmo quite a ways back as well. Reed Miller rounding out the top five. But the big story going into this season, Joe, is Phil Lake will not be a regular runner in the GTO series. So can anybody rise to the challenge of fighting Yuka Leskola? Yuka's got a big job ahead of him today with the draft track, but I think it's going to be interesting to see whether anyone can beat the Finn at the top of the GTO standings.
Yeah, that'll be another question mark, no doubt. Now, for today's race, it's going to be slightly different from our usual races here. Most of them are 40 minutes long and timed races. This one's going to be 11 laps, actually, just because of the fact that they don't want to accidentally get an extra lap, since that's going to be its whole own ordeal. So they've limited it to this, and it's open setup, as Adam was talking about. That could be a bit of a toss-up as to which way you go there. Now, no spare car means that any of these spots where you see the walls very close on the street circuit style track for about half the way around will cause all kinds of issues if you get any sort of damage. Got to keep that car clean here today. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents, and it's a qualification at 25. Not a lot of places where that's going to be a huge concern for this track. Is it's usually the slowdown penalties, if anything, that cause all kinds of headaches. Now, they get their usual 2 laps, but I believe only the Nissans can complete both laps, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. I mean, with the first Audi laps being in the 3:45 range, yeah, it's only 8 minutes of qualifying, so it's not possible for the Audis to complete both laps. I mean, one of them or two of them might be able to, but it looks like Javier Del Olmo and Ian Haycox have already called it a day, with Javier currently leading the GTOs. Yuka Leskola has yet to put in his time, though. So honestly, I would be expecting. Well, actually, Yuko's first lap didn't count, so he better hope he can complete this.
Oof, yeah, that's going to make life a little bit tough. Thankfully, not a huge field, but if he has to start from the back, he's got to hope that he makes up ground quickly so he doesn't lose touch with the front runners. Since it's going to be those draft trains. Laust Olsen on the provisional pole over Sintez Galindo by about 0.3 of a second right now. And Olsen has been quick, as he usually is, as he was last season, but he was also pretty snake bit last season. Just couldn't seem to get the luck and get consistent finishes in order, and that's why Sintez Galindo ran away so easily. So will that change here today? And it certainly seems like the 10 car is determined to try and change that this season, the way he's looking in qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So quite a few drivers in good positions right now. Olsen, as you said, consistency is the key for him this season. If he can get consistent, he's been in the top 5. He's been in the top 3, honestly, running in the top 3 for most of the races last season. So he's got a good shot at the championship if he wants to give it a shot.
Looks like Leskill is going to make it in time. And in fact, I think, yeah, it looks like so that 2-lap marker is a little easier than we maybe made it out to be, because he'll have 45 some seconds left. But anybody who dilly-dallied or had any big issue on the first lap are basically just out of luck. And that first lap is a 34.3, and that will put him on the pole ahead of Del Olmo by more than half a second. So things have returned to normal a little bit down in the GTOs.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the GTPs, Laust still holding that position. It doesn't look like anyone, well, that we know of, has a good opportunity of getting past him in these closing 14 seconds. But quite a few names we don't recognize in the GTPs this season. So it'll be interesting to see who climbs to the top of today's race, at least, and to see who comes back next week.
Timothy Vaughn was another one that looked pretty fast by the end of last season, but today, not so, as he only put it into 6th in that second lap. Let's go through the starting order now that qualifying has wrapped up. As we mentioned, Laust Olsen is on the pole. It's Heitor Sintez Galindo in 2nd, followed by Michael de Turk in P3. From there, Fabian Jungbluth will be on the outside of the 2nd row. Ove Trangrade only good enough for 5th today. Timothy Vaughn, as I mentioned, 6th place for him, is followed by Xavier Sanchez in the 7th spot. Martin Krajcik lacking some pace in qualifying. He'll start from 8th. Amber Doggenbaugh will start from 9th, and then Andrew Medell will be 10th. You've got Pablo Suarez starting 11th, Gianluca Gabbiani P12, and then it's Richard Holt in 13th. Joseph Mudrack returns once again. Haven't seen him in a little bit. He'll be 14th, Cam Porter 15th, and Leonard Otto 16th. A bunch of Nissans that failed to set a time. Diego Mastretta, Baris Cus Fernandez, Jason Clapper, Brett Poncari, Martin Riesman, Kurt Clapper, Lance Simon, Osvaldo Franklin, Christian Arribas, Justin Nagy, and Roy Pruitt.
And then we've got our GTOs headed by Yuko Leskla, setting an amazing time on the front row of that grid, able to beat Javier Del Olmo by 0.6 of a second. Ian Haycox rejoins the series in 3rd position, with Gregorio Buscemi also rejoining us, starting in 4th. Nick Bacanos, not his greatest qualifying, starting off in the 5th position today, with Doug Cloud hopping over to the GTO again to hop in 6th position. Robert Plumley is going to jump in 7th, with Mika Tupola 8th and Emerson Gaudin in 9th position. Jamie Hamill-Smith starts off in the 10th spot, with Jose Wilcox, your last driver, to set a time in 11th. Hideki Koivisto starts off in 12th, with Tomas Martinez Oyarsi starting off in the 13th, with Oren Laskin rounding out your 14 GTO drivers and your 41 drivers for our race here at the Circuit de la Sarthe.
So just waiting for them to take off, which is actually right now, and that gives us some time to head through our 2 onboard cams, as we've got Cam Porter back once again, showing us his perspective. Didn't get a chance to look at him in the Lotus 49s as he wrecked early, so hopefully we'll get better opportunities today. And then, of course, we have Laust Olsen back as usual. Going to try and see if he can at least get a top 10 here, as he failed to do that back in the 49s this morning. starting from the pole position, certainly sets himself up for good chances to try and get a decent result here today as they head into the Porsche Curves. One of the few places where that traffic could wind up being an issue. But look at the temperatures here today in France. 115 Fahrenheit on the track surface, Adam. It's going to be a little slippery.
Yeah, and that's the worst news that the GTPs could have gotten, especially considering the fact that most of them are going to be running the minimum level of downforce they could possibly stand around here. And if they practiced on anything colder and they set their setup up for anything colder than this, they're going to really struggle through this section of the track. These sweeping, high-speed corners are going to make these drivers slip all over the place. You're going to deal with a lot of loose GTPs coming through this sector, and that's going to make multi-class very interesting when we get there, because the normal agility of the GTP that we've been used to will not be the case considering how low these wings are running. I mean, just look at them. They're almost pancake flat right now.
And of course, we get the tricolor flying overhead as well. One of the traditional things here in iRacing's version as they come along the main straight and give us the pre-race festivities. But it's not the main event. That is the cars who are coming through the Ford chicane, and Laust Olsen will have control. The question is, when does he go, and what will that do to everybody behind him, who probably still be mostly in the chicanes? Green flag is out pretty early, does not get that great of a jump. Olsen starts to try and pull away from Sintez Galindo, but he is now starting to gain up on the left-hand side. If he could maybe send it in deep into the Dunlop chicane, he could take that lead away. Does he dare try it on the very first lap? He does. He stays side by side, but can't get the job done. He'll fall back into second. Let's go to the GTOs.
Complete chaos for the GTOs as Yuko Leskola got off to a good start, but then he had to brake because Roy Pruitt was wrecking across the start-finish line in the GTP class. It looked like Gregorio Bashevi got tipped by Ian Haycox going through the final corner, and so that sent him off track. Ian Haycox down to fourth. Nick McConnell's up 2 positions to third spot. Javier Del Olmo, though, leads this race with Justin Nagy just ahead of these guys, and now they're going to come to the draft part of the track. This is where this pack's going to bunch up a lot more.
Yeah, and it's going to get all kinds of weird out there because drivers will be on different strategies. And I'm not talking about pit stops, as Martin Krajcik got a slowdown penalty for Tourte Rouge, it looks like.
Absolutely, but side by side for the lead of the GTOs again here, as we've got Yuko Leskola and Javier Del Olmo side by side. Nick McConnell tucking in behind them. You're going to see a lot of fuel saving from some of these drivers. I would expect a driver like Nick McConnell possibly to have short fueled the car. He's going to be trying to drive this fairly slowly, but they've got Roy Pruitt also in the GTP trying to make up his positions. Ian Haycox looking for a place to go, can't find one. Doug Cloud tucks it behind him. Here goes Roy Pruitt around the outside to figure his way around. But look, these GTOs are going to be like this the whole day, Joe.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, the weird thing about this straight not having the chicanes means that there's going to be some back and forth and quite a bit of shenanigans as to who wants to be where on each lap, especially the last lap, as you see the Nissans coming out. Yeah, this
they look like they just started the race.
Yeah, that's Olsen leading to Turk, who actually took the victory down in the Lotus 49s earlier on. He runs in second here. Sintez Galindo now in third, but it looks like the Turk wants to make it a twofer here today as he immediately pops himself out into the lead. And lo, we got another spin from the same car before.
And Robert Plumley and Ian Haycox have hit the wall. Ian Haycox major damage. That's going to end his race. Plumley might be able to get it fired up again, but that was Justin Nagy who unfortunately spun around at the Mulsanne hairpin. So unfortunately, he's now going to try and get going, but that's caused a big kerfluffle in the GTOs.
He's trying to get it turned around, but I'm not sure how much of a decent day he's going to have with a car that looks like that. So we now see De Turk leading them into the Porsche curves, managed to get by and keep Olsen behind him. As a little bit of side-by-side back there between Sanchez and Trangarade. That's going to go to the 2 cars. Sanchez up into 6th position.
There are a lot of GTPs around here, and some of these drivers not super comfortable with the high speeds of this track, especially with the low wing that they're running. So we're seeing a lot of drivers sliding around, a lot of drivers getting off track, having incidents through the slow corners. So I would expect to see more chaos from these GTPs today as we start to cull the wheat from the chaff.
And so already I've been hearing a little bit of conversation between some drivers over the radio, both on the Mulsanne and now as they complete lap 1. Not exactly what sure is being said because I believe it's in Spanish, the latest that's been conversing back and forth. Look at Turk though, as he has certainly become one of the masters here in these vintage cars. He's won races in the 79s. He's won races now in the 49s, his first ever win in that series. Can he make it a triplicate?
And something happened to Nick Macanos because he is crabbing significantly. He's having to come to the pits. That car is not driving in a straight line. So Nick Macanos up in the 3rd position at the beginning of this race, now having to come to the pits. We had a wreck from Richard Holt, it looks like. Richard Holt spinning around, coming out of, oh my goodness, that's actually some major contact. He's going to have to recover there.
And
that's a long way to go with that damage of a car, Joe.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So at least he's able to keep going and try and pop in and take some repairs. But again, any sort of damage, especially on these Nissans, is going to be costly.
And Pablo Suarez has also had a problem. This one doesn't make any sense to me. I think he had a slowdown, didn't realize it, so he basically stopped on the straightaway and almost got hit by a couple of other vehicles. He's now going well, but my goodness, this already has been an unusual. I mean, Kamel's usually chaotic, but usually the driving standard is fairly high. As we see the lead of the race changing hands, Laus Olsen trying to take the position away from Michael Turk again, as they're still bottled up there for the top 5 positions.
The point I was trying to make earlier is the drivers are going to be able to swap back and forth along the straight. So expect the slipstream not to be so straightforward as to who's behind having an easy pass, because that pass could happen and then they can get passed right back.
Just want to note, Yuko Leskala is 1.7 seconds ahead of, wow, he's actually 3.5 seconds ahead of Javier Del Olmo, so he's well outside of the draft range of Javier. Javier Del Olmo is about 1.5 seconds ahead of Doug Cloud, so just on the edge of breaking that draft. But these GTOs really got separated because of the slow GTPs that were wrecking ahead of them, so that draft pack race that I was expecting has been absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, this is exactly what Leskala was wanting. He's now got basically his fate more so in his own hands than usual at this track. Behind him, you can see all the cars who are still vying for position amongst one another. And I wonder if maybe some trying to work together, use a little bit of leapfrog to get some more speed out of the lap.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way they're going to catch anyone ahead of them at this point. The GTO is just a gigantic box, is what it is. And so when you stick that box in the airstream up ahead of you, that's why it's 15, 20 miles an hour difference when you're in the draft, if you're in a large draft pack. So doing some slingshotting is going to be the fastest way around this track for those drivers behind.
Both the classes are kind of experiencing the same thing, because it's up to 2.5 seconds between Turk and Sintez Galindo. I'll make that 1.3 now. It looks like it's going kind of back and forth. Oh, and a problem for Jungbluth. Looks like he had a little contact, I think, with Vaughn.
Yes, Timothy Vaughn and Jungbluth. I'm not sure how this happened. This was very unusual. They were just coming on braking for the final sector, and it was actually Jungbluth going into the back of Olsen that started this.
Tough, okay. Oh, and Turk must have just had a slowdown penalty. Yeah, it looks like he had a slowdown penalty because he gave up a huge lead. And Sintez Galindo has now gone through, checking to see. Yeah, it looks like he did slow quite early coming into the first chicane. And there he is right now, about 0.8 of a second back. So he should be able to regain that pretty easily down the Mulsanne. And since that is a pretty straightforward situation there, I think we've got the replay of the Ian Haycox and Nagy incident coming into Mulsanne corner, I think on the opening lap here. Let's take a look.
This is actually on the second lap, and Nagy was already slow, so a little bit of unclear communication there, and then outbreaks him. That's a very interesting incident.
Oh, and then he spun across.
Oh my goodness. And so it's just miscommunication from everybody. That's where Nick Macanos got his damage, and Ian Haycox just absolutely the worst one out of that one. But, you know, in Nagy's defense, he did get out of the racing line, but everyone just expected something different, and that's where the contact came from.
Yeah, definitely nothing wrong from Nagy. He just was kind of in an awkward spot where drivers couldn't quite see what was happening there. And then this is the incident coming out of the final chicane, with Jungbluth getting a bit of a touch from behind in the end and eventually get going once more. And that puts Jungbluth down in 9th position now. So we exit the Mulsanne.
Oh, no. Another slowdown, I think, for Heitor Sintes Galindo or something, because he was very slow off the corner. He was within half a second of Michael de Turk, and now he's getting passed by Xavier Sanchez. This race, I'm just baffled. It seems like people not practice. I just don't understand, Joe. This is really unusually messy for the for the Camel Series.
I think what happened with Sintes Galindo, now a unique aspect here at Le Mans is we get a side-by-side battle between Olsen and Mudrak. And I think, well, Mudrak's going to try and come back at him. Olsen around the outside as they break into Arnage. And Joseph just about has him now. He is fully ahead. In fact, that might be a second position gone for Laust, as that was Timothy Vaughn trying to come up alongside him. And he's got the inside coming into the Porsche curves, but now he's fallen back slightly. Yeah, he's going to give that one up. One unique aspect on Sintes Galindo is that they have slowdown penalties for the outside entry of the corner if you go too wide coming into it. So I wonder if that's what caught him out.
Yeah, and the slowdowns around Le Mans are just really, really strong around the Circuit de la Sarthe, and so they can really catch out many drivers. And, you know, on the one hand, it's a good solution to just, you know, raw incident points, but on the other hand, it can cause issues. Yeah, I guess he was wide. I don't know. That might have been, I mean, he braked coming off of the corner, so definitely a slowdown he's paying, but. And now Fabian Jungbluth is into the pits after that contact that we saw a lap ago. I guess what I'm trying to say, Joe, is you know, it's a different way of approaching trying to solve the issue of course cutting is with the slowdowns. But sometimes I feel like, especially in a multi-class race, it can create more chaos and more danger. And we've had a spin from Warren Laskin off of Indianapolis. This one was honestly brewing from the right hand, the high-speed right-hander all the way to the point where he stopped. He fortunately was able to keep it off the wall, but Gregorio Buscemi and Jamie Hamel-Smith were able to sneak through.
So that'll put Laskin into 9th. Because of that, we've lost Plumley, Haycox, Nagy, Mukanos, Jason Clapper, and that appears to be it. Maybe Jungbluth. I'm a bit surprised that he had to come in. He must have just had the suspension bonked just the wrong way. A meatball flag as we go 3 wide now up at the middle of the pack of the GTPs. This is Cam Porter in the middle, Trangarade on the right-hand side of the screen, and then that's now Amber Doggenbaugh, who is in behind, has gone into the middle instead in the yellow machine, gotten back to 2 wide once more. We're going to watch from Cam Porter's perspective as they go by the second chicane on the Mulsanne through the kink and looking for their brake markers down into Mulsanne corner.
Yes, that camera is in fact live. It's just a very long straightaway, and Cam's just giving us a nice smile there on his rocking cam there for us, and into the braking zone. Cam's trying to hang on to it on the outside, or rather on the inside, and he's able to make that work. Amber Donbaugh doing a great job to try and hang out of that position as well. As we look through the 007 cam back at the two of them, Trangarade and Donbaugh as they're side by side. Donbaugh should be able to get a pretty good draft here from Cam Porter, but Cam's going to switch over and give the advantage again to Ovi Trangrade. So very interesting stuff here. It's going to get close going into Indianapolis.
It looks like Amber's going to try and see if she can do anything, but no, breaks a little early. Oh, maybe not. Coming down into the corner, just enough space between them, and Amber is now up into 9th. That was a brilliant move.
Takes guts to race side by side in a series you haven't been in for a while. Amber, a fairly new driver for us to at least watch on the Saturday series, but my goodness, that was a gutsy move. Cam Porter giving Amber enough room, and Amber just taking the advantage.
Well, that gives her what she needs, clear air into the Porsche curves. You really don't want that dirty air. And do we have some problems in the back?
This is a weird one. So into Indianapolis, we had 2 drivers just go off on their own accord. This was Osvaldo Franklin and Christian Arribas.
Yeah, I'm going back and checking now, and unfortunately, yeah, they both wrecking at the same time in completely unrelated incidents, but it looks like both of them just got a little loose at the same time and then wound up heading to the same spot on the track. So they did make contact with each other, but that wasn't the cause of the wreck. It was the result of the wreck.
And we've had another spinner. That's Alcibiades Kuzis Fernandez, who's spun coming off the final corner. These GTPs are really struggling with grip. The high temperatures, the low downforce. I mean, Joe, it's a nightmare to drive those things right now.
It really is. But Sintez Galindo, our current reigning champion, is trying to keep Xavier Sanchez from taking at least a second place if they are going to lose the win here today. Michael de Turk is all the way up the road by 3.3 seconds. There you can see him on screen. That is a pretty big gap here this early on. We're only on lap 5 of this event.
Yeah, and also Michael de Turk just set the fastest lap as well, so it's not really possible for these guys to catch him, so they're going to be duking it out with each other for the rest of the race, and just hope that de Turk either slows up a little bit or, you know, has a problem. Or this might be a little bit of working together for the two of them. We'll see as they come into the braking zone. Looks like Xavier is actually backing off a little bit to let Heitor Sintez Galindo go by. I think they are trying to do a little bit of slingshotting to try and catch their way up to de Turk.
Yeah, that makes sense right now, especially since they've pulled away from Olsen. There's not much point in trying to just battle back and forth for a second, try and use one another. And in the background, speaking of which, you can see Olsen there. Also, I think doing the same thing with Mudrack.
Kind of. Olsen's being a little bit more feisty, but yeah, Sintez Galindo and Sanchez definitely doing it, as Sintez Galindo absolutely backed off before the right-hand kink before the chicane. So these two guys are trying to work their hardest to get up to de Turk, and in their defense, they've cut half a second off of de Turk's time already.
I know we haven't spent a whole lot of time on the GTOs, but honestly, they've all spread apart. This is absolutely not what I was expecting there. Is I see very few that are within draft range of one another. I only think 7th and 8th is about the only two.
Yeah, their race got destroyed very early on because of the slow GTPs that wrecked on the front straightaway and crossed the track in front of them. So they're really broken up, and they're pretty much driving on their lonesome right now. Let me tell you, I've driven a race like that around this historic track, and they're going to have a lot of time to check Twitter.
I was going to say it doesn't strike me as the most exciting thing, but
turn on an audiobook and you're on a long drive through the French countryside. You know, it's not horrible.
They're going to get a bit of a shakeup though, because they probably only have, I'd say, about 2 laps before the GTPs start to run them down and lap that GTO field. So that could maybe cause a little bit of wildness amongst them, slow some up, speed some up. And now as we watch that battle for second, Sintez Galindo will be hoping for some sort of pick that he can finally shake Sanchez and keep him from continuing to ride his coattails along the long straights.
Actually, I think that Galindo wants Sanchez to stay with him, because they look at that. De Turk once again, another fastest lap for the man. These two, even working together, cannot catch de Turk. It's just not happening. They're slow. They were slower on last lap by 0.3 of a second, both of them. And de Turk's out on his own. I mean, that just goes to show you that de Turk's got this course nailed down, such to the fact that he can undo the gains that these two make in the draft when they're drafting each other through the twistier sections of the course. And I mean, if that's not the markings of a good driver, I don't know what is.
Looks like we had a problem in the Dunlop chicane between Gabbiani and I believe that was Cam Porter. So I think this was just a spin from Cam, and then Gabbiani had to get on the binders to try and avoid getting collected in that. They both are able to keep going now, and you can see they've already hit the Mulsanne, and Cam's in 11th. And where did our other one go? Gabbiani is in 13th, it looks like.
Absolutely. Just had a pass for second in the GTOs. Doug Cloud passing Javier Del Olmo on the straightaway. These two are probably going to be attached hip to hip for the rest of this race. They have about 6 seconds. They have about 14 seconds up to Yuka, who, to say he's putting in fast laps would be an understatement. He's been a second faster per lap than the rest of the field since we started. So That's quite a performance for himself.
Yeah.
Nice three-way fight, though, in the 7th position for the GTPs between Amber, Dawn, Bao, Ove Trankray, and Timothy Vaughn. Timothy Vaughn getting a slowdown, falling off the back of Andrew Maddell, and is now in this pack of 3, which is soon to be a pack of 4 as they're catching up to Andrew Maddell.
Coming down into Mulsanne, Trankray is going to lead this trio once again. But as you mentioned, Andrew could be caught here. It's about a second and a half. They're going to feel a little bit of the effects of that slipstream. And this is, you talked about as we, here we go, another move there from Amber. You talked about Leskala being so far ahead. This is a bad sign for anybody else who wants to have a go at the championship. It seems like Yuko has not lost any of his fervor for trying to dominate this series.
Yeah, but if you talk to drivers of other series that have had dominant championship wins, it's not the most interesting for them either. And considering this is an official series, my hope would be, a driver would come in that would put a challenge to Leskala to motivate him to stick around, because it'd be a shame to lose both him and Phil in the same season. So my hope is that, someone jumps in, maybe Caradine can come in and put a challenge to him. Maybe Phil comes back for a couple of races, but Yuko Leskala, the reason he's been here so long is he's always had a hard fight with those dirty torque guys, but he's just gained so much speed recently, as we see another driver having a problem. He's just gained so much speed over the years that he's been here that he's become kind of the GOAT of the GTO series a little bit, and the only person who could really challenge him was the consistency of Phil Lake, but Phil's not racing this season.
As we get another little swap here in second for the GTOs, Delomo and Cloud going to exchange once more. So they are at least keeping ahead of Buscemi, who's, let's see, looks like 6 seconds behind them as well. So really no challenge in front or behind. Are they gaining on Leskala, though? It was at 6 seconds before, wasn't it? It's down to 4 now.
Yeah, yes, it is. And actually the bump drafting, these are basically just smaller NASCAR vehicles, more or less. Bump drafting is definitely an effective strategy down the front straightaway, and Doug's giving it a shot. And these guys at 175 miles an hour are beating out Yuko Leskala by about 1 mile per hour. So not super great, but I think Doug could actually use to bump Javier a little bit more. The trouble is that the GTO is usually set up, Joe, to have a little bit of camber in it, so it makes it easier to turn because it has that infamous understeer on the front end, and that makes it really unstable to do those kinds of bump drafting moves.
Well, I recall when this car first came out, even on iRacing, driving it down the Mulsanne felt pretty sketchy as it would kind of wobble around a little bit.
You feel like you're falling off of a rope every time you turn the wheel just a tiny bit, but
yeah,
it's stabilized a lot in recent years because of the adjustments that this series has made, especially to the tires. But yeah, these two drivers are going to have to work hard, though. They have caught up a little bit with Yuko Leskala, but it's going to be hard to keep that going for the remaining 20 minutes of this race.
That's still going to add up over time. There's so much of this track that is straightaway. I think if they keep that up, the real question is, you talked about comparisons to NASCAR. At least over there, you can only push for so long before you overheat the engine. I got to think the same might be true here.
Possibly, but the drivers, I've never had an issue with blowing up in the draft in the GTO. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but you're just getting a lot more airflow considering this is not an oval. So usually, the temperatures will come down through, the Porsche curves, through a couple of the rest of these to allow for that to happen. But I wouldn't be too concerned about it. The real question is the guy in front the one who's running the lowest wing setting? And if that's not the case, you want to swap.
That's true. You need a little bit of communication on that end. So we've had another driver head into pit lane, Richard Holt, for some reason. Don't have info on exactly what caused that quite yet.
The battle for P2 in the GTPs has just caught up with the battle for P9 in the GTOs, and it's a big mess.
Oh, well, there goes that battle as Sanchez spun off. Now, miraculously, did he keep it off the wall there?
Yeah, he did. I have no idea how.
I thought for sure he was heading in there. And yeah, didn't touch it. And I think, if anything, the one that might have gotten damage out of that might be Sintez Galindo, who had some contact in the back of Oren Laskin.
I'd love to see that on the replay to see what happened with these two, because this was just miscommunication from everybody. Or Laskin and Hideki Koivisto having that contact, well, not having contact, but they were, you know, almost side by side entering the Porsche curve. So we'll see what happens here with Xavier. Here we are watching them come into the Porsche curves, and it's just a little bit of miscommunication between himself, Galindo, Laskin, and Koivisto. And you'll see, there he goes and spins it, and look how close he gets. Oh my goodness.
Mash those feet to the floor, keep the brakes locked, and it just eventually righted itself. Look at this. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
2 feet to the left.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Run around.
Oh, no. Oh, after he was having such a good race here today.
Oh, this is a really interesting moment for Laust. This was a spin of his own volition. He does hit the inside wall, so he's got front end damage that's going to really affect him on a straight line. But if we do have a replay of this one, this is a really fascinating case study on weight transfer and aerodynamics. Because when we're coming through this final, when we're coming through the, look at that, through Tetra Rouge, he gets tucked in behind a GTO ahead of him and has to whoa up a little bit. And because of that, he hits the brakes at the wrong point, and it rotates the car underneath him because it's in the transition from mechanical to aerodynamic grip. And that's the point where the car gets light in the center of the vehicle, and it just lifts the car up just a little bit with the braking, pitches it onto the front tires, and the rear tires kind of come off the ground, and that's what sends him around. So it's just, he had to slow up at just the wrong moment in that weight transfer, and it sends him around, unfortunately.
Well, that also sends him down to 13th, so looking less and less like a top 10 here today for our pole sitter. But Taturk is all the way up to 4.2 seconds away from Sintez Galindo and continuing to cruise. But we said that maybe some of the traffic will shake things up, and it certainly seems like that is the case for now as we head towards Indianapolis following Andrew Medell and Timothy Vaughn. This is for 7th position. I have to admit, I'm a big fan of Medell's paint scheme.
I just saw a pass I can't believe happened. Can we? It was in this pack that our director just found, but Gianluca Gabbiani just went 4 wide down the straightaway in the grass to get past this group of Audis that they're trying to get by. If we could get a replay of that, that would be amazing.
This was gutsy, no doubt. This is coming up to Indianapolis. He knew he needed to try and do something, because he had plenty of speed. Here we go. You can see him starting to gain, but these two are going to get checked up. That's a battle in front of them in the GTOs. They got no place to go, at least so they thought. And wow, 2 wheels in the dirt. And let me check and see how fast he was going at that moment.
9 times out of 10, that's going to end a disaster for you. I've tried that move in practice sessions.
That was 185 miles an hour, 2 wheels in the dirt, and he kept his foot in it.
Whew. Okay. Cojones of steel right there.
Really? Gabbiani gets 10th place because of that, and not just 10th place with a big gap back to his rivals who were stuck behind those cars, having to wait for them. We're down to 3 laps to go now, so it's getting towards the end of this one. And so far, while the lead battles have obviously been a bit of a dud, everything else throughout the pack has been pretty something to watch.
I mean, we've had moments, fiery moments all over the place, and they seem to crop up at very interesting times. I mean, that was the beauty of the Kamel series is the multi-class challenge, and my goodness, that battle for 9th and 10th in the GTOs has just been causing a headache for every single GTP battle that has tried to go around it. That's between Hideki Koivisto and Oren Laskin. We haven't been watching them per se this entire race, but y'all have been able to see how that battle has been shaping up, because they continuously are side by side right when some GTPs want to go by.
Amber Doggenbaugh is up to 4th and has been battling with Sanchez. Here we see it on screen right now, but Sanchez is going to slipstream right by.
That's Yuko Leskala.
Yuko's staying as far off to the side as he can go. just making it abundantly clear which way he wants them to be.
And the fact that he doesn't want to be involved. But these two, you know, they're right on the back of Joseph Mudrack. Amber, for, you know, their first race in this series on the Saturday that I can remember, Amber might have a podium potentially in hand if she could be in the right place at the right time to end this race. But Xavier Sanchez, he's going to be feeling pretty grifted at this point. He's going to not want to give up that position, so it's going to be a hard fight to the end of the race for this pack of cars.
Absolutely. So potential for the podium to change, at least on the bottom step, as the 17 takes it through Indianapolis. Sanchez had a little bit of a breakaway. He's now sizing up Mudrack in the meantime, and they exit out of Arnage. One last long straight before they head into the Porsche curves. And you can see in the background Lescala just kind of watching it from afar, hoping that he has no issues as the GTPs continue to cycle past him. I'm starting to see a little bit of a breakup here amongst this quartet, which looked much closer earlier in this lap.
Yeah, but you'll see this quartet close up together again when it comes time to get onto the straightaway, because none of them are outside of each other's draft range. I think you'll see Xavier Sanchez and Joseph Mudrack get side by side, and his momentum will just stop because he'll hit that wall of air, and that'll bring Amber Dowenbaugh right back into it. So under braking, going through the final chicanes here, everyone very clean, very consistent, very well measured here. I think I think Joseph, Xavier, Amber, and Ove are going to be on top of each other, on the straightaway here.
And something we need to give mention to, because I don't know if we have yet this broadcast, Mudrack's our hardest charger. He is up 11 spots right now. Even if he loses the spot to one of these three that are closing up on him, he'll still be the hard charger by a long margin. I think the next closest is 7 up.
All right, so coming on to the straightaway here, Mudrack's gapped Sanchez a little bit, but it's a second and a half. It's a pretty decent gap. So Amber's going to have the biggest draft coming off of this, but a little slow coming off of Tetra Rouge. So I can't figure out what's going to happen here. Cam Porter has an issue. He's spun it around coming under the Dunlop Bridge. Unfortunately, that's going to lose him 3 positions down to 13th spot as he gets passed by the struggling Lost Olsen.
Both of our camera cars right there.
Oh, look at this. Amber Dowenbaugh has caught up to Xavier Sanchez, who can't close the gap to Mudrack. 1.4 seconds being about the drafting limit of the GTP, so he's just outside of that. So Amber's going to have an opportunity to go around Xavier, and if Xavier's smart, he'll play it like he played it with Mudrack, or rather with Sintez Galindo before he had his incident. Yep, he does. Slots right in behind Amber, and is going to try and draft with Amber to catch back up to Mudrack. I'm not sure whether Amber's interested in that kind of challenge, but definitely going to give it a shot. And Amber does back off a little bit before the braking zone, so they're trying to get up to Mudrack.
And you can see in the background how far back Trangrade is now. His slowdown penalty from Tetra Rouge really hurt him badly. He could maybe catch back up, but it'll take a good bit of speed to try and chop away at that gap that is formed.
And this is interesting because of the way that played out. Amber Dowenbaugh launched Xavier Sanchez into the Mulsanne chicane, or the Mulsanne hairpin, at a really good point. So Xavier's now up to 7/10 behind Joseph Mudrack, and that's just due to the fact that getting that draft from Amber was able to launch Xavier into that 1.4 second range, and that's gained him the time back to get back onto the back of Mudrack. But if Mudrack can pull away like he did last lap, we'll see a rinse and repeat for the rest of this race. Amber, though, seems a little bit slow off of the corner coming out of the Indianapolis sequence. So as we head towards the Porsche curves, about 9/10 back versus Xavier, who's only about half a second back of Joseph.
It seemed like Mudrack was a little off the apex through Arnage. And so it's down to only half a second as they come into the Porsche curves. Dowenbaugh is now a full 1.2 behind back there, struggling a little bit in the twisty bits. We're going to come to 1 to go here in just a moment. Turk is already actually at the line now, and he's got about 5.5 seconds over Sintez Galindo. Oh, and a problem for the 12 car. That is Richard Holt, who's already had some issues as he's visited pit lane at least once in this race. That looked like he had the problem in Indianapolis and now carries on, but he's 24th in class.
Wow, Zyber Sanchez with the fastest lap that lap, so that draft off of Amber really helped out. The bottom step of the podium is up for grabs in both classes. Doug Cloud and Gregorio Buscemi are just coming through the Porsche curves now, only about a quarter of a second separating the two of them. And we got this battle that we've been seeing between Joseph Mudrack and Zyber Sanchez, with Amber Downbout only about a second behind, also in play.
And they're coming up to the Mulsanne now, so they should start to reel each other in once again, all within a second of one another. Trangerade still at about 2.2, it seems, behind them from what my timing and scoring is telling me. And there at the flash at the bottom of your screen was Heitor Sintes Galindo, about 4.5 seconds up the road from Mudrack. But on the final lap, will we see the last podium spot change hands? It's still at half a second between Mudrack and Sanchez. He's closing in, though. He's got the slipstream. The question is, when does he want to utilize it to actually make the pass?
Remember that Sanchez has been as high as second position, and he's going to be feeling like he's owed that spot. So he's going to try and make the move on Mudrack now, but Mudrack with decent speed, is Zyber going to drop in behind again before they get to the chicane? Taking a look here, I can report that Martin Rijman has had an issue, is back going again, but look at this. They're separated, trying not to allow each other to do any sort of side drafting here as they break for the chicane. It's going to be for the hairpin. It's going to be Sanchez, very strong on the brakes on the outside, able to get that position away, but Mudrack now has the draft. Sanchez is going to try and weave here to try and break it.
Back and forth a little bit, but then it looks like maybe he's decided to just run the normal line. Nope, he's still continuing to try and just shake him out, and it's not going to do any good because he almost breezes past. Mudrack has the pace, but it's not done. Sanchez tries to come back at him, breaks deep down into Indianapolis, but the cutback could allow Mudrack to try and take the position anyways. Side by side, coming into Arnage, and Mudrack has to finally give up the ghost.
Oh, both of them very loose off of the corner. Sanchez still sliding around. This is Mudrack's strongest section of the track. So if Mudrack can get the draft here, which he does, he's going to have the inside for the Porsche curves. We know how strong Mudrack is here. Sanchez is going to have to leave it all on the line on the outside to try and hold this position.
And he does. He sends it in as deep as he dares, and he's got it back. It's going to be tough to try and overcome that from here. Though Mudrack is right on top of him, I'm not sure if the Ford chicane will really offer enough of a chance to try and outbreak him. Speaking of which, Michael de Turk heading through those final couple back and forths right now as the 3-car has gone back-to-back today. The Lotus 49s and the Kamel GT see the same winner, and Michael de Turk.
And Mudrack did try and send it into the Ford chicanes, but Zyber Sanchez sent it deeper. Both of them sliding off the corner, but it's going to be Sanchez that takes the final podium spot. Heitor Sintes Galindo gets second, but the battle for third in the GTOs is still underway as they're in Indianapolis, almost making contact as it's Doug Cloud and Gregorio Buscemi. They do make contact as they go through there, and that's going to mean that Gregorio Buscemi misshifts and falls behind.
Cloud up into third, and man, what an improvement we have seen from Doug in recent seasons. A podium, this might be his first that we've seen. I'm not entirely sure. If it's not his first overall, it might be his first in the GTOs, as typically he was running in the GTPs in previous seasons.
Not done yet. They've got traffic, Joe.
Indeed.
Traffic really starting to break up this battle. Doug Cloud trying to hang on to it, but this is the worst place to catch traffic. Look at that. That's Gregorio Buscemi trying to close the gap, trying to make it work here. It's going to have to be a late dive into the Ford chicanes for him, but just like last battle, speaking of the Ford chicanes, Yuko Leskala coming through a dominant race today, stayed out of trouble, drifting it a little bit, coming through the Ford chicanes, clipping those curbs and powering out Yuko's first win, likely of many this season.
And Javier Del Olmo needs a pat on the back for what is an excellent second place. He couldn't keep up with Leskala, but you can't fault him for that. Meanwhile, it is still close between Cloud and Buscemi, but Buscemi mischiefs off the final corner. And
slow down.
Doug Cloud is going to be able to take a podium here today. He should be proud of that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, a slowdown penalty for Gregorio puts him where he has to back off of the final corner. Emerson Gaudin and Jamie Hamill-Smith will finish 5th and 6th today, as Yuka Leskala doing some donuts there in rewards for the first win. Whew, that was definitely an interesting race, Joe.
Indeed. And as the rest of them come across the line, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
Welcome back here to Le Mans. We just saw round 1 of the Kamel GT series, and Michael de Turk took victory. In fact, it's his second victory on the broadcast, on the channel here today at this track. Doing so in the 49s earlier. Aitor Sintes Galindo could not keep up with him once de Turk broke that slipstream. Still got himself a second place, and as we saw last season, those second places and third places will add up for Aitor. Xavier Sanchez rounded out the podium, and Joseph Mudrack, he may have not been able to spray the champagne today, but he went from 14th to 4th. I think he needs to be happy with himself on that one. Amber Dogdenbaugh finished in 5th, as Ove Trangerade was P6, and it's Andrew Medell in 7th position, followed by Timothy Vaughn, who just didn't seem to have as much as we've seen in races past out of him. Diego Mastretta was 9th, and then Gianluca Gabbiani was 10th. On the next slide, Pablo Suarez was 11th, and Laust Olsen, our pole sitter, had a bad day. Wound up only 12th. Couldn't get top 10 in either of the races he raced here today. Cam Porter 13th, followed by Fernandez P14. Fabian Jungmuth, another one who qualified extremely well, 4th place, but then only could get a 15th in the end. Had some car contact and then had to get repairs because of it. Riesman 16th, Lance Simon 17th, Brett Pancari in 18th. Then you got Kurt Clapper P19 and Leonard Otto in 20th. From there, drivers having a bit of a bad day. Martin Krejcik, Christian Arribas, and Richard Holtz. Holt, the first one, a lap down. Roy Pruitt, Franklin, Jason Clapper, and Nagy all wore DNFs at today's race. Let's go to the GTOs.
Yuka Leskala took a commanding victory after the GTO field got broken up on the first lap because of some GTPs that had spun on the start-finish line. Javier Del Olmo comes home in second over Doug Cloud after the two of them battled for the last couple of laps, with Gregorio Buscemi battling with Doug Cloud for the last couple of laps, finishing in the 4th position. Emerson Gaudin finishes in 5th over Jamie Hamill-Smith, with Jose Wilcox doing a great job coming in on that 7th position, with Hideki Koivisto in the 8th spot, Oren Laskin in 9th, and Tomas Martinez Oyarsi finishing in the 10th position. And those are the last drivers on the lead lap of the GTO field, with Mika Tupola, Ian Haycox, Nick McConos, and Robert Plumley, the last 3 of those not finishing the race.
And first up to chat with, we have our winner, Michael de Turk, who's already had one with us earlier today. So, Michael, I have to guess that you seem to fancy the French countryside.
I normally think I'm pretty bad at it, but I really practiced a lot this week.
Well, it paid big dividends for you, because that was impressive, going back-to-back on the channel, taking wins at the same track in 2 entirely different cars. You know, I kind of joked with you about the 49 being so different than the 79. This one, though, has some similarities. So is this a bit more comfortable?
A bit more comfortable, yes. Actually, I kind of think the Nissan is a bit of a bridge point between the two, because it's a little bit more unstable under braking than the 79, so it kind of feels a little 49ish in that sense, but then it's got that downforce and big power that the 79 has as well. So it actually feels like a pretty good bridge point between them.
Well, the only downside, because now you've won in all three of the vintage road cars, is we don't cover the '87 Cup cars. So you're gonna head over there and start seeing how you fare on the oval side.
I feel like I have to, don't I? That'd be all four. Has anybody ever repeated in a weekend or even three-peated?
I don't know if we've ever seen a three-peat. I'm pretty sure we've seen drivers win 2 of the 3.
I feel like Ove or Topi would do that. And Timo Karolainen could definitely take all 3, no question.
Topi Kortiniemi has also run in each of the 3, I'm pretty certain. Yeah, there's a few. Mick Claridge has done all 3. Man, that is an interesting stat. We'll have to try and dig up all 3 of them and see if we can figure out if anybody has managed that. And if not,
I don't believe so, Joe. I don't believe so.
Okay. If not, we have our triple crown here of GSRC. So somebody's got to try and manage that. Regardless, before you head out, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
You guys for the great broadcast as usual. Hopefully I get to chat with you tomorrow too. I'll try for that 3-peat, but 8 laps on the Lotus 79 so far. I'm not too confident in my pace, but thanks to Doug Cloud for the setup base. I used his for the start, and it kind of also a sorry to him there. I know I kind of sent it around the outside entering Porsche curves a little aggressively, so sorry about that, but otherwise a great race, and it was fun running with these guys.
That was Michael DeTurk, your winner here today. And I believe up next, we've got Doug Cloud actually ready to talk to us. Is that correct? No, excuse me. No, I was reading the wrong information there. No, we do have Aitor Sintes Galindo. So Adam is going to be talking to second place in the GTPs.
Yeah, absolutely, Aitor. Not necessarily the finish that you were hoping for, but still a great race today, and a good fight with yourself and Zabir throughout the race up until the final couple of laps. But talk to me about your race today.
Well, yeah, it was a very interesting race. The battle with, well, let's say battle. We were giving each other drafts, so we were trying to get faster and try to close up to Michael. But yeah, pretty happy with the result. I didn't expect Michael to be that fast, but when the spotter said to me, Aitor, Michael just did a 3:16 when I was doing 3:17s, so I was like, okay, let's set the 4P2, and I'm happy with the result.
Absolutely. And I mean, this race with the 3.7 mile long back straight, I mean, that's definitely a challenge for when it comes to setup, because if you run, minimum downforce, then you run the risk of being very slippery through the twistier sections of the course. How did you balance the setup today?
Well, pretty much. The long straight didn't help, and basically it's like Daytona with a very, very long straight, and even then we couldn't catch even 200 miles per hour. So because these cars weren't supposed to run Le Mans historic layout, but yeah, it's minimum downforce and pretty much mandatory. Even though it could be even less downforce, but you couldn't turn on the Porsche curves or the Fords. So yeah, it's a tricky setup for me, because I usually try to have a balanced setup or a little bit of high downforce for the corners and stuff. But yeah, Daytona Le Mans are not my favorite tracks for the Nissan, just because of all the low drag, and I'll try my best to have like a high-speed corners. But yeah, it was tricky, but nonetheless it was fun. It was a good fun, a good week after all.
And next week we head to Fuji, brand new on this new build of iRacing. Have you had a chance to run any laps around it? Have you bought it? What are your thoughts heading into that round?
As a matter of fact, yes, we had a week 13 race at Fuji, and we tried to have some laps there. So yeah, it's not exactly new, but yeah, it's a quite interesting track, and with the right situation, we might see very interesting fights. We had a very interesting fights in that week 13 race, and so I expect the next race and have a good race after all.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Aitor. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Well, the usual suspect, you guys, GSRC for the broadcast, my family and friends on watching, Kamel community, and shout out to Michael for the win, congratulations, and Yuko as well for the GTOs. So yeah, thanks everybody, and see you in Fuji.
Thanks for talking to us, Aitor Santos Galindo, finishing in second position today, and Joe has caught up with Joseph Mudrack, who finished in fourth.
Yeah, just shy of the podium, but it was quite the battle. And also, I mean, we have to mention up 10 positions, Joseph. Well, what happened in qualifying? Because it certainly seemed like your pace is a little bit quicker.
Yeah, so what happened in qualifying is I didn't start practice until 10 minutes before the session came up. So that puts you on the back foot when you drive with no strategy beforehand. But the race with Xabi was great. He gave me just enough room everywhere. My strategy completely changed mid-race because I thought, Laos got back by me, and he had a little bit of rear end damage, but I could tell he was so much faster in the corners. So I told him we'll just draft up. We'll just pick Xabi and Aitor up, and then Laos got caught up in traffic. So I was just going to settle into third, and then I look at my F3 and Xabi's on a tear. So I thought I might be able to hold him off, but he had so much pace. But it was a terrific race.
This is a very strange one to start the season with because it doesn't really give us a true picture of the pecking order. Do you expect you be able to continue to fight for these podiums when we head off to Fuji next time out?
It's so tough to tell. I mean, some of these tracks I feel like I have no chance at, like the Brands race a few seasons ago with, I think it was Fabian, and I hate Brands, so I'm just going to play these races week by week, even if I can even make them. But yeah, it's fun to see names like Michael up there, just to give us a really strong target to fight for, because as you guys know, he's fast.
Yeah, quite fast. Very knowledgeable, too. You've actually had the pleasure of having him in the booth sometimes. In the meantime, though, anybody you want to thank for top 5 today?
Thanks to Xabi for the great race. That's the kind of stuff, leaving room like that is what makes this game fun. And thanks to you guys for putting in the time.
Well, thank you for coming and joining us. That was Joseph Mudrack, who finished 4th. With one last one to talk to, Cam Porter is with Adam right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Cam, it was a very interesting race for sure. We were able to drop in on you a couple of times, and you're in some great battles. But I mean, talk to me about this race and this track. I mean, such a long straightaway presents some very fascinating issues when it comes to driving around here. Cam, you got us?
Might have some microphone issues here with Cam. We'll give him a second to see if he can.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Hey, Cam, how's it going?
Sorry. My apologies for the...
That's okay. So yeah, talk to us about your race around here. I mean, with such a long straight, that's got to make the racing a little bit interesting around this place. So talk to me about how you adapted to it.
I have a problem with my audio, guys. I have to sign out. I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine. Thanks for talking to us, Cam. That was Cam Porter, who finished in 13th position.
Unfortunate. We'll maybe get to chat with him a little bit later on, as he is frequently hopping in to give us a little bit of a perspective on things. But before we go, we want to thank the Kamel GT community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, and also thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. And then thanks to the team today, Adam, Zach, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. And make sure to check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. There's a link in the description below, so it's nice and easy to get there. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because as we said, it's off. That'll be Saturday, June 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out. Mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.